Hello, listeners. Mallory Wilsey here, Chief Producer of the Enrollify Network, and I want to take just a quick moment to tell you about another show on our podcast network designed specifically for all the education technology enthusiasts out there. The Higher Ed Geek podcast is a deep dive into the world of educational technology and its transformative impact on the student experience. Geek out each week with host Dustin Ramsdell. His conversations are a mix of engaging storytelling, expert analysis, and a genuine passion for all things higher ed and tech. Whether you're an educator or an administrator or just someone passionate about the intersection of technology and education, this podcast promises to deliver content that's both enlightening and entertaining. You can subscribe to the show by visiting podcast.enrollify.org or by searching The Higher Ed Geek wherever you get your podcasts.
Welcome to Talking Tactics, a podcast that gets you results. Each episode features a single tactic implemented with limited resources that moved the needle in enrollment in some way. I'm your host, Day Kibbles, Strategy Director at Ology, a marketing and branding agency for education. Join me every other week for discussions with some of the most clever folks in admissions and enrollment marketing, doing the work day to day, just like you. Talking Tactics is a part of the Enrollify Network, a robust collection of podcasts designed to help higher education professionals like you grow. Explore our other shows at enrollify.org or check out some of my personal favorites, linked in the show notes below. Enrollify is made possible by Element 451, the leading AI-powered, all-in-one student engagement platform, helping institutions create meaningful, personalized, and engaging interactions with students. Check them out at element451.com. Hello, friends, and welcome back to Talking Tactics. Do you want to know how you might increase your social media mentions by, 1,000%? I know that sounds impossible, but it's what Sabreen Alfadel is here to talk to us about today. Sabreen is the digital communications specialist at Rosalind Franklin University of Medicine and Science. And the tactic she's going to share is simple, but so impactful. Responding to comments and mentions for 1,000% increase in engagement on social. Sabreen works in her university's Division of Marketing and Brand Management. She's responsible for establishing and executing a strategy for the university's social media channels, and she takes pride in revealing the university's tight-knit community across social platforms. In her free time, she likes to attend concerts, cook, travel, and discover new restaurants. Welcome, Sabreen. How are you?
I'm good. Thank you so much for having me, Day.
Yeah, no, I feel like I have to ask you, the very first thing I have to ask you is, what's a new restaurant you've recently discovered that's your favorite?
Oh my goodness. Actually, this past weekend, I went to this Korean barbecue spot. Korean barbecue is very high up there on my list of favorite cuisines, but it's called Ryu Asian Barbecue, and it's in Logan Square, but highly recommend it. The atmosphere is great, and I mean, you can't go wrong with Korean barbecue.
You really cannot. It's like it combines so many things that are great. It's like perfect umami too, right? Like it's just such great comfort
especially
food.
The all-you-can-eat. Don't get me started on that.
Maybe we should have a cooking show, like not so much a cooking show, but a trying new foods show. I think that would be great.
Let's do it.
All right. Our next episode together will be about food, but today we're going to talk tactics. Are you ready?
Yeah, I'm looking forward to it.
Awesome. So, I spoiled it a little bit for folks. This is definitely going to be, engaging on social. Can you take us back to the start? What were you trying to improve or solve? What was the state of your social media engagement when you started?
Yeah, so I gotta say, I think at the start of everything, we really just wanted to boost enrollment. We had already identified, and we're constantly identifying the programs that need higher applications. And so ultimately the goal is always to improve enrollment, right? And so in order to do so, we really just needed to be part of the online conversation because what I've learned is, listening into social conversations, it really reveals to you a world of prospective students who are just looking for answers. They're looking for acknowledgement. They're looking for further information. They really want to, they want to get to know you, you know? So we wanted to understand sentiment. We wanted to figure out, you know, how do students feel about our university just generally? And also, are they engaging in conversations? Are they exploring school options? What do they have to say about us? So all those questions that I just, you know, rhetorically asked, I mean, the answer definitely is yes to all of them. The other thing I would say to answer your question as well is we also wanted to improve our sense of focus. So the way our social was set up before, we focused a lot on just putting out like the right type of content. And I think I can say, you know, if any social media manager is listening to this, they will relate to this. We are always trying to push out content. You know, we have our social content calendar, and it's all about organizing our content for that specific week. But we don't really dedicate as much time. We didn't really dedicate as much time to responding. So a lot of schools really, they tend to overlook engagement on the social media world. And so I would say for me, receiving a mention, it's only half the win if you don't engage with it, right? So if you receive a mention or a tag, usually the feeling is always, cool, that's awesome that we got that. But, you know, if you don't engage with it, you're not really making the use of the social media channels as much as you can. It's all in the name social media, you know, social media. Engagement is literally the social part of social media.
A part of it, right? Yeah. And
totally.
I love how you say that, you know, how a lot of people think of mention as the win, but it's really only half the win. But that's what we report. Like when I've seen at least social media reports, it's like, oh, we have these many mentions, we had these many comments, but I think what's missing is the next level, like, and we responded to 100% of them, or they turned into a conversation or something like that, right?
Yeah, no, totally. I mean, I gotta say, we noticed a lot of missed opportunities of mentions and tags, and that they could have led to an interaction. And I think, like, when you think of that interaction, that specific interaction also could have led to our audience or prospective student audience just gaining a greater understanding of our university's culture, what we're trying to communicate. And I gotta say, we have a pretty warm, tight-knit community. So I that's like always something that we're proud to really just show our prospective audience and students.
And you're walking the walk with that, right?
Trying your best. Yeah, no, it's been good. It's been really good.
All right. So what inspired this idea? Did you just notice some comments that you're like, man, we really should respond to this stuff? Or what inspired you to start engaging more?
Yeah. So during a SWOT analysis, actually, we realized that we weren't engaging enough as we could have. And so going through a bunch of our social channels, we realized, wow, there's a lot of tags, there's a lot of mentions. So we made the strategic decision to just engage. And I want to talk a little bit about engagement. Engagement includes your commenting, your liking, your sharing, but you're not just doing that. You're also resharing that onto your feed with your own language and, you know, trusting that content enough to give it a platform on your own feed. And I feel like social media managers can tend to be a little bit more picky about what they choose to put out on their feed. But, you know, reworking the way that we engaged in the past has been a really cool way to do things, you know? So personally, when I respond to someone's tag, I try and put a little bit more effort into that response. I'm not only just saying thank you and keeping it generic, you know, I'm tailoring it more. I check their profile. I see how they've tagged us, what they've been talking about. And I make it a little longer, like a couple of lines long, you know, just to show them like, hey, we care, you know, you really took the time to tag us and mention us. And so we're listening. We're listening. But that was one way that we started to do things and how we started to kind of rearrange our whole thing. But we also tapped into Campus Sonar. I'm going to give them a quick shout out. But they partner with
Campus Sonar.
Yeah, they partner with higher ed campuses, and they're awesome. But they help guide us as well. So, you know, we're not working with them this year now, but it's really been great to see how a lot of what we've done has stuck around.
Yeah. And yeah, definitely shout out to the Scenarians. Big fan, big friends.
We love them.
We do love them. So, okay. So you're saying I'm responding with more than one line. I take a minute to go look at their profile. And I'm certain that as soon as you said that, the social media managers listening are like, oh, we don't have time to do that. So talk to us about how after you made this decision to do this and try this, how did you set it up internally? Like, what mechanisms are you using? How many people are working on this? How frequently do you check? Just how do you make this happen?
Yeah, so I'll preface by saying I am the sole social media manager of our university. So I develop all our content, and I work with
Wow.
my supervisor who just helps approve a lot of the content that I put out there. I think just generally that's how the line of work goes. But the way we started out first was just more manually, and I would say that what has helped me a lot is blocking out times on my calendar. So by blocking out specific time on your calendar, you're telling yourself, this is the dedicated amount of time I want to put into social media in my workday. It helps balance out all the other stuff you have to do. But for me, blocking out, for example, 8 a.m. to 9 a.m. in the morning and 3 p.m. to 4 p.m. at the end of the day, it really helps put things into perspective and holds me accountable. And that way I know that this is the hour that I'm going to spend going through social, looking through our mentions, spending enough time as I can, just responding to the ones that require certain responses. But that's how it started, just manually with the calendar blocks. I know that sounds really simple, but having that out there, it holds you accountable. And eventually it evolved to us using more advanced tools like Brandwatch and Mention are some of the ones we use. But, I have to say, though, outside of advanced tools, I mean, I discover some of the most important and authentic real-time conversations, like, honestly, simply by just searching up manually, especially on forums like Reddit, because let's be honest, anonymous posting is as genuine as it gets. Like, if you want to gauge audience sentiment, you're going to find it on forums like Reddit, So doing that outside of advanced tools during your dedicated calendar blocks is a really great place to start.
So talk to us about that. Do you just go to Reddit or Google or anywhere and type your university's name? Do you do departments, mascot? How do you do that?
So honestly, a lot of it, we're a medical grad school. So there are specific forums that are also dedicated to that sort of stuff. So there's a student doctor network and, nursing forums. And so a lot of the times prospective students will post on those forums like, hey, this is my list of universities.
Yeah.
And then RFU is on there. Our university, Rosalind Franklin University, is on there. What do you guys think? Should I apply to this place? Or how does it compare to this state school that I'm trying to go to? And so it's interesting because I will also work closely with admissions based on, their own experience of how did the application work for them even, It all goes down to even just the little nitty-gritty details of their experience, even just applying to the university that we can really change up how things go. So yeah, that's been really interesting to see how those postings work on there. But I want to say really quickly, most of my team is remote, but one thing that also really helps me is I carve out time to visit campus as well. And I engage with students and student leaders in person. So like what we were talking about, I am the sole person, but there's a lot of benefits to that because you can people really start to know who you are, when you put in the effort to talk to them in person, to be on campus. And, I've learned a lot about social listening, and it is about tapping into the digital landscape, but there's also a lot of value in physically being involved on campus. And you pick up on a lot of things, you hear a lot of things, and that kind of helps you with developing content as well.
And the answers to some of the questions, right?
Oh, yeah, definitely.
So I just find this I find it fascinating because I'm imagining the amount of time that you spend doing this, but it seems manageable the way that you're talking about it because you're just this one person doing it. You mentioned admissions. Do you ever encounter situations on social where the question is so specific or you need to kind of go elsewhere to get this answer? And do you have a threshold for how quickly you need to answer things for yourself?
Yeah. So, to answer the first part of your question, I got to say everything social, it takes a village, It is just me, but I do lean heavily on my team, and they're all very helpful. We all have our own areas of expertise. I work with admissions, with institutional advancement. And so I am not just one person with all the answers for sure. And it's really helpful to tap into everyone. But generally, I would say the rule of thumb is answering within, within minutes or hours. We try not to answer within days, because timeliness is how you create that trust. That's how the person who is on the other side of the screen, when they message you personally or direct message you, you're developing that trust, and you're telling them that you care, not just like by talk, but by action as well. And so responding on time is one way to do that for sure. But we get some specific questions, about specific programs. And so that's when I tap into our community. And that's the perks of having a close-knit community is even in our work, it really shines through.
Yeah. Okay. That's awesome.
Mm-hmm.
So I'll ask this because you mentioned Reddit specifically, even though I'm sure you're also on your own channels. Have you found that you need to kind of clear it with the mods or anything like that before you start responding on Reddit as your institution? I guess let me backtrack here. Are you responding as your institution, or are you like an anonymous poster? And have you had to get permission to do that?
Yeah, so honestly, on the topic of just social listening generally, we've been dedicating more time on forums to just listening. We spend most of our responses and responding to messages and whatnot when it's on our own social media platforms. So especially since I'm one person, it's been easier to kind of arrange our time in that way. But social listening on forums, that's where we're able to kind of gain insights on and how we can push out specific information. What are they looking for, and what's bothering them? What's bothering them? What can we change on the admission side, and what can we change in the information we're trying to put out there?
Yeah, it's like free research.
Oh, yeah, definitely.
Hey, it's Mallory. Exciting news! I'm hosting the Engage Summit in Raleigh on June 25th and 26th, and I'd love to meet you there. Together, we'll dive into the mind of the modern student, what fires them up, how they interact, and what they expect in today's digital age, and how tools like AI help put them in the driver's seat of their education. We have some terrific speakers, including our closing keynote, New York Times best-selling author Jeff Selingo. Sessions will dig into practical ideas and innovative strategies to get your team more student-centered and ready to adopt AI. And many of your favorite Enrollify hosts are presenting too, like Jamie Hunt, Jenny Lee Fowler, and Brian Gross. Use the discount code Enrollify50 for an extra $50 off your registration. Learn more and register at engage.element451.com. We can't wait to see you there.
So can you talk to us about any hurdles or challenges you've kind of faced along the way?
One challenge, especially if you're starting out with social listening or you are a small team, is just, like we said, discovering the sheer volume of conversation that's out there. This can be overwhelming. So I think that at first it definitely was a challenge, but that's why it was important for me to kind of strategically figure out, how can I organize my time appropriately, right? So that way I'm cycling through conversation, like I said, at specific times of the day, or only searching for very specific types of information. So during those calendar blocks, instead of me just, going out there and trying to figure out what's out there, I'm going out there with a mission, right? With a goal. So for this hour, I'm going to specifically search up school comparisons, and then for the end of the day, I'm going to search out, feedback on university processes or admissions sentiment, or even just go through our own social channels. And so that's how I organize it throughout the week, is being able to just, have a specific goal in mind with the type of information I'm trying to find, and then really just using that to whatever you've gained and whatever I've gained to make data-driven decisions, So after doing all of that, repurposing certain content or developing content, based on what
Yeah.
I've learned. Like student faculty leaders, for example, I've been able to find out like, hey, on Twitter, we have a faculty member who he's a rock star. He's awesome. Like everybody loves him. Whenever he posts, he gets a lot of good engagement. So taking that bit of information and going, you know what? I should respond to him more, but I should also create more content around him, about his own accomplishments, because people love to hear that.
That's so smart. The kind of setting these micro goals for yourself in these blocks of time so it doesn't feel like this huge mountain of you trying to catalog all these different types of information. That's super clever.
Thank you.
So you've talked about your tight-knit community and this great team that you have. I know a lot of higher ups in higher ed sometimes feel, one, that this might be a waste of time, or two, they don't understand social. Have you encountered any challenges like that in your community where, they don't even see the value of this? Have you had to overcome anything like that?
Being a social media manager is interesting because people from around the university, the way they see their own programs or their own content, they just want to have you put it out there. They're just like, they're constantly giving you stuff to put out there and like, hey, can you put this out now? Can you do this right now? And so I feel like those are interesting moments that I come across because it really shows me like people don't really understand that there's a lot more that goes into social than just writing the content and posting it. There's also, when you post it, you want to make sure it's at a very specific time of the day. That way, when you're monitoring social or when you're starting to engage in social listening, you're also allowing yourself enough time in that moment after posting to be able to pay attention to the post.
Oh yeah,
and
good
notice how it performs. And so I try not to post on Fridays, for example, end of the day Friday. Because I won't have that flexibility to look through the post and also manage any sort of conflict that might arise, if anything were to happen. So just making sure everything is in a timely way is important from all aspects, from content creation and also from the social listening aspect. And so that's been an interesting thing to kind of teach people around campus and, get them on the same page about.
Yeah. All right. It seems like you really have your operation together. I love it. So talk to us about the results. I know I said 1,000% earlier. Like, where is that coming from? What other results did you see from just shifting your focus to listening and engaging?
Yeah, so like you said, we've seen over 1,000 increased mentions with the total at 7,200. And we've also seen an 867 increase in unique authors, with the total authors being at 1,683. So to kind of make this more specific, I'll say Facebook, for example, our most recent reach that we've noticed is at 1.1 million, which is a 59.4% increase in comparison to 2022. So essentially, content interactions have also gone up to 9.4 thousand, which is an over 200% increase in comparison to what it was in 2022. Wow. So we have really noticed this incredible shift, and it's really put us at 5% above the benchmark in terms of interacting with our audience, and not just with prospective students or our own community, but also just, organizations who we collaborate with. If they come on campus, if they've been putting on lectures, if they've been putting on events, if we've been hosting anybody, just also engaging with their posts and their experiences and making sure that they understand that we value them so that they can come back.
Yeah, I just find that astounding because I'm sure you obviously kept up with your content calendar and your content creation, but this just very simple shift in just engaging, right? Which as you said earlier, this is what social is made for, and it's rewarding you. The platforms are rewarding you for interacting like a human being with human beings.
Oh yeah, definitely. And also, once you get more into it, you realize that not every mention needs a response. Mm-hmm. Sometimes acknowledgement through a like is enough too. And so you start to notice the nuances, right? Of how to allocate your time efficiently and make sure that the responses you're putting in are appropriate for that specific post that was made. So you start to notice that over time that like this mention can use 2 sentences worth of a response. This mention can use a repost. This mention can just use a like, and so you start to notice those routines and those habits.
Do you have, like, off the top of your head, like, tips for the social media manager that hasn't done it yet? What is just a like? What do you repost? Because that is involved. What do you comment on?
There was a prospective student on our LinkedIn account who had made a post. They were there for a simulation open house, and they posted these incredible photos. He did like all the simulation activities, and I think he was like a high schooler actually, and so he was just like, I can't wait to eventually go to our
All right.
the things that you find, right?
Yeah.
But he was very enthusiastic about it, and like, that's the future. That's the next generation. That's where our account really comes into handy, because you're giving them that motivation, and you're making them feel like, the passions that you feel right now is important. So that I gave it a platform. I reposted it. I mean, he posted a lot of cool pictures, and I feel like that's one tip I will give. If somebody was already taking pictures for you and they already took pictures of your equipment and they're speaking highly of it, that's such a great opportunity to be able to just repost that on your channel. You didn't even have to take the photos, and it shows you that people really do care. And so those types of posts, I like to give a repost. I like to give a more in-depth response. And so that's like one example.
That's a great example. I love that. Do you have any other favorite posts or interactions to share that you remember?
Yeah, always. I would say that, another time we used social listening, I was able to identify a prospective student who made a post that she just visited 2 Chicago schools for physician assistant programs. And so I identified that conversation in real time. I responded from our RFU account. And then I went a step further and I reached out to faculty members from the program and a second-year student who also happened to be one of our student leaders. And so I informed a bunch of different people in our community about this post, and I sent them the link, and I was like, you know what? If you want to respond to this is a prospective student. I'm sure they would have loved to hear from our community. And suddenly I checked the post and everyone started to engage on it, and people were liking each other's comments, and it was so great to see that enthusiasm from everyone. And I'm sure that the prospective student got a really good glimpse of our tight-knit community culture. It was reflected in that instance. And so ultimately, not only did this prospective student get authentic recommendations from our campus community about their experience, she gets a glimpse of our culture, and she has contacts that she can reach out to now that she didn't have before. So that was a
win-win-win. Win-win-win-win-win-win.
Win all around. Yeah, I was really happy.
That's incredible. And I get the privilege of looking across a lot of universities and colleges and higher ed institutions. And a lot of people say tight-knit community. A lot of people say that. A lot of schools say that. But what, our recommendation is always show, don't tell. And you're doing such a perfect example of show. So thank you. Thank you for sharing this.
Of course. Yeah, definitely.
So last thing I'll ask you for the folks listening, what is your advice to someone who might want to start this, but doesn't quite know how to balance content creation with listening? Is there like an ideal percentage, like 50-50? If they don't have the resources, or even if they have a big team, say of student content creators, how much of their resources should they devote to listening versus creating, in your opinion?
In my opinion, and what I like to tell new social account managers who are in our university and they're just opening accounts, as much as you dedicate time to posting or creating content, you should make that same amount of effort with social listening. So I would genuinely give it a 50-50 recommendation, because that's also how you gain followers. That's how you gain just like trust in your own community, because you don't only have to dedicate that time to engaging with prospective students but also, engaging with the accounts that already exist in your university. They start to reshare your content, you start to reshare their content, and just authentically external audiences view that. They get another authentic experience of the tight-knit closeness of the community. And then, that's how social works is the more you share, the more that content gets shown. And so more people are able to be privy to it.
That's wonderful. I agree with you for what that's worth. I love that you said the word experience because, when we think about reputation building, brand building, we think a lot about what we need to say, but what people feel and how they relate to us and what they experience with us is just as important, maybe more important than the stuff that we say. So, going back to the show, don't tell or show and tell, it's 50% show, 50% tell, I guess.
Absolutely. Hey, you said it right.
There we go. So thank you so much, Sabreen, for coming on the show and sharing this tactic. It's a big tactic. It's a decision, right? It's a philosophy. And
Definitely.
I really appreciate sharing how you got started with this and the results that you're getting with our listeners.
Thank you. I really appreciate that.
And as Sabreen is doing, walking the walk on her tight-knit community, to you listeners, you also keep walking the walk and talking the tactics. The Talking Tactics podcast is part of the Enrollify podcast network. If you like this podcast, chances are you'll like other Enrollify shows too. Our podcast network is growing by the month, and we've got a plethora of marketing, enrollment, and higher ed technology shows that are jam-packed with stories, ideas, and frameworks, all designed to empower you to be a better higher ed professional. Our shows help higher ed marketers and admissions pros find their next big idea and feature a selection of the industry's bests as your hosts, like Jamie Hunt, Allison Tercio, Jenny Lee Fowler, Jeremy Tiers, and so many of your other favorite leaders in higher ed too. Enrollify is made possible by Element 451, the leading AI-powered, all-in-one student engagement platform, helping institutions create meaningful, personalized, and engaging interactions with students. Check them out at element451.com.